What's going on YouTube? This is EXEC, and we're going to be talking all about PAM, the pluggable authentication modules for Linux. Specifically, we're going to be using PAM exec in order to log the passwords of users logging into the box using sudo, SSH, whatever, right? And at first, we're going to do it with the bash script, and then we're going to convert that bash script to a GoLang binary so we can do some advanced things. In a future video, we're going to take that GoLang binary, instead of writing a file, we will exfil it via like HTTP or DNS. I like using DNS because if there's a strict firewall in play, DNS will allow us to traverse that firewall most likely because it's likely the server doesn't have direct access to DNS or to the internet. But because of how DNS works, as long as I can talk to a DNS server and that DNS server talks to the internet, you'll still be able to get out. So I like using DNS as an exfil for things like this, but that's covered in a future video. This is all about like an introduction to PAM. And this isn't anything new. I just want to like talk about PAM a bit so you understand when it comes to the next video. And for starters, when you want to learn about something, I don't like just asking ChatGPT or ChatGPT as many people call it, because it tells you exactly what you asked for. You don't know what you don't know, so it's hard to ask for like everything about it. So I like starting with the man page, and this PAM is not a map file format. Guess it's case sensitive. So there we go. We have PAM, the pluggable authentication module. And essentially what this allows people to do or services to do is to authenticate against the local Linux database. If you wanted to roll your own authentication, which you almost never should do, you'd have to take a lot of things in consideration. You'd also have to run as root because you have to open the shadow file, and then you have to read the hash. You have to understand all the like hashing things that could be there. It may be bcrypt, it may be like YP. It has a bunch of just formats that are weird. And then once you validate the password's good, then you have to say, hey, what group is this user of? Is the password expired? Do you have to change the password at next login? What is their shell? Like there's a bunch of just things you have to do after that. So PAM gives you just like an API to do a login and get all that information automatically. So it is a super handy thing. Definitely read the man page. If we look, we can see PAM is separated into 4 independent groups. We have account management, authentication, password, and session management. But instead of just reading the whole man page, let's just look at exactly how it's configured. So the PAM scripts are in pam.d. If we look at all these, we have a bunch of scripts, right? The one we're going to focus most is SSH and common auth, I think. But you also have things like VM tools. This may be surprising to you, but hypervisors can invoke commands normally on guest computers. So like I think vCenter has invoke guest command. I forget what Hyper-V calls it. Proxmox also can, except I don't think Proxmox requires authentication on the guest to run a command on VMware tools. But if we look at the PAM module, we can see it's just going to include common auth and then PAM shells. I don't know exactly what PAM shells is. So let's do a man on PAM shells to understand what this does. And it only allows access to a system if the user's shell is listed in EXEC shells. So this way, if we used invoke guest command on like VMware, where's the shell file located? EXEC shells. It will only allow execution if the shell is in here, right? So if it's a bin no login, it's not going to pass authentication, which is good, right? So that is how the VM tools works. Let's look at, let's see, you got su-l, run user-l. There's also su. Let's look at SSH. So let's do vim sshd. And we can see it starts off again, including common auth. Then we disallow non-root logins when EXEC no login exists. So let's look at exactly what PAM no login is. Let's go man PAM no login. And PAM no login is a module that prevents users from logging into the system when var run no login or EXEC no login exists. The contents of the file are displayed to the user. So this is probably just a list of users that can't log into the box. If you just ask ChatGPT what it is, it would probably tell you this. You wouldn't know it has an argument. So if you wanted to, you could give a custom line in that SSHD to give it a EXEC no login -SSH. So this PAM module would only take effect on the SSH service. And I think there's like a deny users function in the SSHD config that you could use. You probably should do it that way because that's the standard way. But this is just like learning how it all works, right? So the main thing we want to look at is PAM exec. This is going to be the module where we spend most of the time. So this calls an external command. And there are plenty of legitimate use cases for this, but every legitimate use case gets replaced by them just making a custom PAM module for that functionality. Um, I would probably recommend removing this library from your computer because I don't think anything legitimate uses it. You could do like a grep-r PAM exec on this to make sure nothing's there before you remove it so you don't break anything. But this allows running a command. And the most dangerous thing is this expose auth token, which is going to put the password on standard in. It also exports a few environment variables. We have PAM our host, our user. This is remote host, remote user. You got the service, the TTY, the user, and type. You may be thinking, why is there user and remote user? Think when you're running a SU command. The R user is probably going to be your username, in my case, IPSEC. And then the user is going to be who you're going to, which would be root, right? So that is how all that works. If we go down, it gives like an example. I don't like the example the man page gives. It's kind of out of date. It's talking about the NIS database, which is, I think, Network Information Services. It's a central authentication thing, kind of like LDAP, but it's really old. And essentially, whenever a user changes the password, it's going to use set EUID, which will switch to the user logging in, and then run the make command to make this database, right? But let's think of other use cases of exec. And again, every use case is going to be replaced by its own like PAM module. The best one I can think of that uses like the expose auth token would be having a bash script run whenever a user logs in to mount a SMB directory, because Linux won't just do that auto magic like NTLM authentication because it doesn't store the password in memory for that user. So you would have a PAM module that when the user logs in, it would have PAM exec. It exposes the authentication token because it needs to run the mount command to mount that SMB share as the user, and it needs to know the user's password to mount that share, right? There is a PAM underscore mount library that probably does everything better. So that's how you probably should do it, but you could do it through the PAM exec module, right? You could also have a PAM exec module like run IP tables commands based upon the user logging in to allow them access to different resources. But I think there's a PAM IP tables library that would probably be better off. You could also, like when a user logs in, execute some binary that does multi-factor authentication. But again, if you're using like Google MFA, they have their own library you install. So all the use cases of PAM exec that I can see kind of get replaced by just using functionality that is like that library is built for. But what we're going to use it for is exfilling or writing the password of logging in users. So let us go with this. And I want to make sure I don't have a artifact. I don't. So we're going to log to var log passwords, right? Let's go in V. I'm going to call it logger. And we can say it's going to be a shell script. And all we want to do is log the date. Then we want to log the PAM user. This is going to be exported in the environment variable. And then we can say cat and then dash. That's going to get standard in. And let's see, we probably want PAM our host and then PAM our user. And then let's log this to var log passwords.log. So now we have our shell script here. We want to make it executable. So we'll do chmod plus x. And now we want to edit comment auth. So sudo v etc pam.d common auth. And we want to put it at the top, the first one. If we do it too far down, like after this PAM deny, I think invalid login attempts won't happen. We also, if we do it too far down the chain, there's a chance that the token gets destroyed. And even if we have exposed token, we can't read the password. So I generally put it as the first line. We can put it right there before that comment, right? So we'll do auth optional, and then pam exec.so, quiet, and then we'll do expose auth token, and then it's going to be home ipsec pam logger. And that's where our script lives. You could put it wherever you want, right? You could do like user local bin logger if you want. So now we have that. Let's go that ls var log, was it passwords.log? Doesn't exist. Let's SSH localhost. I think I have SSH running. Let's put a bad password. I did ASD. Look at this. that log now exists. Let's cat it, and we can see the line entry. Let's just do a tail-f on it, right? So if we do please subscribe, we see that goes there. Now let's just do password, which is the password I have on this box, and it logs right in, right? So let us edit this thing. Did we do it here? I'm going to move this down to the bottom. And now let's tail F. We SSH. A bad credential no longer happens. We didn't get anything here because, again, it happened after that PAM deny, right? It exits before then. I like logging invalid passwords because sometimes like users have different passwords. They type the wrong password to log into a box and that password's good elsewhere. So it's handy to know invalid passwords. Let's see. We could also make sure we're getting sudo. So if I do sudo who am I, we do password. We did not log it. I wonder if that's just a fault with our bash script. I could have swore this should work. Let's do su. Maybe I should move this to the top. We do it here. Sudo v. Let's see. Move this line here. Because I don't know the password of root here. It may be like disabled. I want to make sure it's logged, but maybe the bash script is not logging it for whatever reason. I'm not sure. We'll see if it works once we switch over to GoLang. I'd have to look more into exactly what's going on. I thought it should work. I'm confused. But the show must go on, I guess. Let's get rid of this. I don't like bash scripts. We'll do GoLang. Hopefully it works once there. So let's do a go mod init, and I'll call it logger. That's how we start the project. And we'll touch main.go, and let's open up Visual Studio now. I like GoLang because it creates a binary. You could do it in Python, but it depends if you have all the libraries there. I just find GoLang works better. And I don't know why Visual Studio did not open. PSEF grep VS code. Grep code. Hello? Is something wrong with my PAM module and like Visual Studio is using it? What is going on? Okay. I have no idea. But was this in an SSH connection? No. Oh well, we got it. It was probably like in an SU or something weird and it lost the X session. I have no idea. Let's just start. We did package main. Let's do func main. And let's see. How do we start this program off? Well, we want to open up the file. So we'll do file error and then OS open file. And we'll call it, let's actually create a global variable. So we have to like change if we open the file multiple times. So we'll call this log file. Let's see, var log file string is equal to var log passwords.log. I think that's how we do it. Log file. And then we want to give it what? OS create append, right? That looks fine. Read, I guess that's fine. I don't know why it just suddenly changed on me. Let's give it we have append. That looks fine. Okay. If error is nil, we don't want to panic. I'm always scared to panic when I do these PAM modules because there's a chance if it's configured wrong, you exit with a non-zero, then it denies the login. And we don't want to deny logins because we lock everyone out. So we're just going to fail open. This is not like proper Go to just say, hey, if it's an exit, let's ignore it and exit like everything happened. But we definitely don't want to lock the system out. That defer is going to close the file handler when this function exits. So now we want to grab all the environment variables. So I'm just going to say vars is equal to os.environ. And now we want to grab the password. So we'll say var password string. And then to read standard in, we can use the FMT module and say scan the address of password. So that's going to read standard in and write it to this string. So now that we have all that, we want to create the logger. And for the logger, I'm going to use 0log because I like writing in JSON. I just find like it goes to Elasticsearch super easily. It's easy to search things. Like JSON's just the way to go for me. So we'll say go get, because this is going to be a non-standard library, github.com rs0log. This is my favorite logging library. We install that. And we can tell the logger to use 0log, give it the log file. We want with timestamp and logger. That is all good. So now what we need to do is just write the log entry. So we can say log.info, and then we give it the interface, which is going to let us log a slice. So we'll say the vars is going to be vars, and then we want the password. I'm just going to do string. Password is going to be password, and then message will say PAM exec dump PW is the message. Everything looks good. If you're getting an error here, then your Visual Studio probably freaked out and put like log there, and you don't have the 0 log. Sometimes that happens. Just replace log with 0log log. And I think this is all we need. So let's do a go build. And now we have logger. So if we, let's do tail-f var log passwords.log. Let's do SSH localhost, put a password in, and we get it out in JSON format. We can see the password is please subscribe that we put. If we do password, we have that. If we wanted to, we can also look at it in JQ and see all the things in clean. We have this SSH connection thing, which is a variable that SSH put in. And this is going to be the source address and then the source port. That's 535724. And then the destination and port. It's probably more clean if we show this live. Let's see, sudo v var log passwords. Just making sure I'm still recording. Kill that. So now the tail-f will work because we only have JSON output. So give a few lines, and I'm going to hope I can open up CMD. Yes, I can. SSH, let's see, what is this IP? I think it's 192.168.58.7. Hopefully this is right. We'll do password. There we go. Awesome. So this is my host IP. Then we have the ephemeral port, and it's connecting to the box on port 22. The user was IPsec, SSH, this, right? Awesome. But the one thing I like knowing is if the connection was successful or not. And there's probably going to be a better way to do this. I don't know how to like have the PAM module export if it's successful or not. So what we're going to do is a huge hack, but I mean, it works. So I'm going to call this executable twice if it's a successful one. So let's do sudo v common auth. So we're going to call it up here, and then we're going to call it at the end. And when we call it at the end, we're not going to expose the auth token. We're just going to call it. So the password's going to be blank. So what that enables us to do is say if the length of password is equal to 0, we can type, then we're going to edit the line. And I know if user has blank PW, or if remote user uses blank PW, chaos. Because they could log in with a blank password and then hit this function and just screw things up. But we're not going to worry about that bug because it doesn't really affect too much. And if the password is greater than 0, we're just going to dump it, right? So we want to create this edit line function. So we're going to say func edit line, and I'm going to pass in the username. That way, like, we can make sure that we have the right line. Just better error handling, I guess. So let's open up the file again. So we'll do file error os open file log file, and we want oso create, and then oso read write. What the hell just happened? My IDE is cracked. oso read write. Okay. Oh, because that's a pipe, not a comma. There we go. And then the permission 0644 probably, right? That's what we should do. We should not do all sixes. There we go. You may want to make sure you don't have OS append here. If you do, it's going to write things multiple times and append it because that gives you the append permission. You won't be able to go back and replace things. So make sure OS append is not in this file. So once we open the file, we want to create a slice of string, and we're going to read the file into this. So we also need a scanner so we can read the file. We're going to use buff.io, new scanner on our file. And then we're going to read everything into this slice. And we can grab the last line by going to the, like, how many lines there are, then back one. So now we got the very last line. And now we want to create a search string. So the search string is going to be validating that the last line is indeed the username that is logging in. So we'll do search string, and then what we want to do is probably just a tail one var log passwords. Let's see, we want to grab the PAM user is equal to IPSEC. So this is what we want. We grab this, and let's see, this is going to be a sprint f. We can do %s here, and then comma username. And there we go. If you're curious why I'm using backticks, these I think are called runes. In GoLang, you can encapsulate strings with double quotes or runes, the backticks. You can't use single quotes. Most people use the backticks because it's a more rare character, so you don't have to worry about like escaping quotes and things like that. So there we go. So now all we want to do is say if strings contains the last line in search string. We don't care about that. So here we're in like the last line is that user. So I'm going to call edit line, and we're going to replace a variable. And we got to add this variable here. So what we're going to do is string result, and we need a word that is going to be the same number of characters because I'm just doing inline replace. I don't want to worry about padding and things like that. I think failure and success, they are both the same number of characters. So first we can write failure. And then here, we're going to replace the failure to true. So replace, let's see, the last line. And then, what is this going to be? I want to say result colon failure. I think that's how it's going to write it, just in JSON format. Okay, so now we have that. We want to create a writer. So we can write to this, like write the log file. So we'll do buff.io, new writer, and we want to seek to where the last line begins. We could probably seek to just where the fail, like right here, but that's going to be harder than just going to the line. Or we could just edit the like slice in the last line and rewrite the whole log file, but that's a lot of extra file IO that we don't need. I'd rather just replace the last line. So we'll do if, let's see, error and we can say file seek, and we want to get to the offset. So let's see, we'll call this last line offset, I guess. And that's going to be the length of last line. And I think either -1 or -2, because you have the line break, right? And the file seek is going to be a negative number, and that's easier if I do it that way. So int64, last line offset, and then we do IO. What is it? Seek end. This is going to go to the end of the file and then go backwards to the last line, right? So after that, what do we have? Error nil. That's fine. Now we want to write. Yep. So we're writing, like we did seek to the last line, and now we're going to write it. And we screwed up our casing there. And we probably just want to flush at the end. And if we did everything correctly, this is going to work. And if you've watched my videos long enough, you know, there's probably going to be some type of error. Definitely have to call it, edit line, and we're going to do OS get environment PAM user. There we go. The E is not capital. Okay. Moment of truth. Let's see. This is already in an SSH connection. We can just do go build. Let's do tail-f var log passwords. Okay, are we ready? SSH localhost bad password. We only wrote once. We should pipe to JQ, and the result was a failure. That is good. Let's few lines. Give it the correct password. Only one entry. It's still failure, but maybe tail did not see us edit this. Let's do it again. And there we go. We got the success. So what's happening there is tail read when it wrote the line the first time, and then did not read when we seek to the last line and replaced it, right? So this is working flawlessly. First time. That is amazing. If we did like a sudo, let's do sudo who am I? It says failure, but again, I bet we reread it, it says success. Oddly enough, our user is the same. That is odd. If we do su, I think we can see it is a failure, but we see it's calling su-l. The user it wants to go to is root. The user calling it is me. So that is going to be the first PAM video, right? And in the next video, we're going to be sending it over HTTPS. And then also after that, we're going to be doing it over DNS, and we'll have to do like some encryption there because we don't want to send the passwords in plain text. And again, the whole reason for that is it's a good way to bypass a lot of network ACLs, because when you make a DNS request to the DNS server, then the DNS server makes another request. It's not using the IP of the server. It uses its own IP, and a lot of DNS servers can resolve to the internet. So there's a high chance of you being able to keep that connection alive, getting all the credentials if you're doing it over like a DNS exfil. So with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Take care, and I will see you all next time.